Okay, so I think it's important not to forget that 47 years ago, it was your family that was overthrown. It was your father that was overthrown. There was a reason for that, and I wonder how you sort of talk about that right now, how you think about that right now. And also, like it or not, Ayatollah Khomeini had a ground game. He had the mosques, he had people who are actually religious, and he had access to the press, as you know, in Paris, and he had a real operation, you know, cassettes smuggled in with his words into the mosques in Iran. I was there during that year of the revolution, and I remember it very well. So this is all to ask you, why do you think a Pahlavi should be the leader again? And how can you do it? What kind of a plan do you have? What kind of a political ground game inside the country do you have? I mean, it's necessary, right? You've got to also be able to convince people there and to have an organization.
Well, when it comes to the name, that's the name that people chanted on the streets of Iran by the millions in 31 provinces of Iran, in the four corners of Iran. They called my name. They asked me to come to their support, and I have. And I accepted the challenge of leading the transition. As far as the plan that we have a plan before the regime's collapse, and particularly for the transition after this regime, which is very well documented and presented. It's an open document. You can see it on the website of the Iran Prosperity Project. It talks about the initial 100 days. How do we manage that process? How do we avoid what happened in Iraq post-Saddam Hussein, because we don't want to have the same experience of debathification. And one of the key components of this strategy is how much defection can exist, not just because we need them on the side of the people, but because, and that has been my principal position, that anyone who doesn't have their hands soiled with the blood of the Iranian people should survive regime change and have a place in the future. They can be part of the solution as opposed to remain part of the problem. That's very critical to maintain a stable transition, both on the civilian side as well as the military paramilitary side.
So I want to follow up on what you just said, whoever doesn't have blood on their hands. But as you know, a lot of your supporters, or people claiming to be your supporters, or I don't know, bots online or whatever, have zero tolerance to anybody who's in Iran right now. They call everybody a collaborator, everybody an appeaser. There is this incredible woman, Narges Mohammadi, who's a Nobel Peace Laureate. She should be a source of pride for her human rights and her sacrifice that she's made. And yet, online, it is catastrophic what people claiming to be your supporters are saying. So I don't know whether you want to say something to them, whether you reject this kind of lumping together anybody who actually lives in Iran and has to survive.
Look, I've always spoken against any kind of political violence or intimidation as a matter of principle. And I think this is an opportunity to say that one of our asks is, of course, the immediate release of all political prisoners. That includes Narges Mohammadi. And I think when we look at the future of Iran, while today we can all be allies for a common cause of liberation and a secular democracy as an alternative to this clerical dictatorship, I think we are all in the same boat. We may vote differently tomorrow, and tomorrow someone like Narges Mohammadi may choose to run as prime minister or president. That's fine. But today we need to first address the issue of liberation. And on that, I think the vast majority of Iranian secular Democrats, whether they are Republicans or monarchists or socialists or conservative or, representative of our ethnic groups or religious minorities, when you look at the diversity among us, we are quite united on these principles. And I think that is where we need to stand together in unison and do not allow those who, and I think the regime is behind a lot of these campaigns, to try to discredit not just me, but pose as representative of this or that group, because they always try to play the divide and rule game. They always tried over the years to make sure that such an array of opposition can never unite in a real sense. What I call, again, and I take the opportunity to remind people what this struggle is all about. This struggle is about freedom. This struggle is about the equality of all citizens. This struggle is about freedom of speech. This struggle is all about democracy and the ballot box. And we can certainly compete in the future But today is a time to make sure that we don't have that ballot box through which we can determine who has what level of support or who can be able to do this and that. We need to get there first. So remind ourselves, we're reminding everybody, our cause is for everyone to fit under this tent. And this tent could be as wide as it can get, so long as we can agree on at least, this is what I'm calling for, on at least 4 key principles. Number 1 is Iran's territorial integrity. This is a matter very important for many Iranians. Yep. Number 2 is the obvious need for separation of church from state, which is a prerequisite to democracy. On that we agree, including many clerics in Iran who have spoken time and again against the Velayat Faqih. They don't believe that religion has a place in politics, and they know how much damage was done to the faith as a result of this regime.
So just we know that is the guiding principle of the Islamic Republic. The supreme leader represents
And we had
God.
many clerics from the beginning who were ostracized by the regime. Today we have one of the leading clerics in Iran, Maulavi Abdul Hamid, a Sunni cleric who has spoken against this regime and believes, in fact, as a clergyman, in the separation of church from state. So it's an established fact within the Iranian people. Number 3 is equality of all citizens under the law and individual liberties. And number 4 is the right for the Iranian people to determine their own future, which is exactly the agenda of the transitional government, to make sure that Iranians will have the ability to elect their representative to the Constitutional Assembly, to decide first what it is that they want in their future. And unlike 1979, where nobody had a clue what Islamic Republic means, but a clear option as to what are the diverse possibilities, allow for a Constitutional Assembly to draft a constitution, allow for people to either adopt it by a referendum or reject it and have another draft, all for it to finally end up with a ratified constitution approved by the nation. Then we will have the elections of the first parliament and the first government of that future democracy. Whether it ends up being a republic or it ends up being a constitutional monarchy, that's exactly for the people to decide. And the minute this happens, the transitional government dissolves itself and turns over control to the elected members of the Iranian parliament and government. That's the end of that process of transition
I'm going to get
now
you
until the next
to your future role. But I really do need to ask you, will you tell your supporters online or wherever they might be to stop, in your name, this kind of attack on ordinary Iranians, because it's very terrifying?
I have, and they know it, and it's not only them. I think this should be for everyone to follow as a principle. There shouldn't be any place for political violence or intimidation from anyone. And I think we should all adhere to principles. I'm not talking just to one group. I'm talking to every single Iranian out there, regardless of their political affiliation. We need to show and demonstrate that exactly that's where we differ. A regime that is in a punitive way forcing an ideology and has been discriminating against every possible aspect of people disagreeing with them, as opposed to those of us who cherish the values of freedom, have tolerance for other viewpoints, believe in pluralism, and that's exactly how we define ourselves as a contrast to this regime. We have to show it beyond words in action. And that's something that I've always called for. But I cannot control millions of people and whatever they say in social media, and who knows if they are real people or not. That I can't control. But I can only stress the importance of these values. You don't approve of it? Of course I don't approve. And I've condemned it. I think there are many people in this room who, in fact, often have reposted my statements that are aware of this fact, that I've done my part as much as possible to condemn that type of behavior that I will not tolerate and will not stand for.
To your role, what do you want to represent if there was this opportunity? Do you want to be king? Do you want to be president? What is your role in this situation?
You know, from the first day I started, I considered my mission in life to bring the country to a point that we can have that final referendum and the people elect their first democratic government in the future. That, to me, is the finish line and mission accomplished in life. I don't have any personal ambition. I'm not seeking power. I don't want to have a crown on my head or a title. But I think that they should look at me as a bridge to that destination and not the destination itself. That's my focus. And any other argument about whether or not I will have a future role is placing the cart before the horse. My focus is on delivering on what I promised 47 years ago. That has been my commitment. And the reason millions of people in Iran are calling me and my name and want my return is because they know that they can trust me on this. I'm the only person that was not part of the revolution or ever associated with this regime. And that's a big plus when it comes to how many candidates are out there. And that's why you hear my name chanted on the streets of Iran, and a lot of people in the diaspora supports it as well.
I remember covering the Ahmadinejad era in Iran, and it was a very aggressive posture on every issue, including anti-Semitism, anti-Israel, talking about wiping it off the face of the map, very, very violent. And I think it really, really put certainly the Israelis and Jews around the world off. You have been to Israel. You have, I believe, visited the Western Wall. You are supported by this Israeli government. I want to know what you think and why you think that's important, because equally, this Israeli government has shown itself to be incredibly intolerant of its own citizens' rights, its Muslim citizens' rights inside Israel, and of course in Gaza, the occupied West Bank, and it's very controversial. So I just wondered why you think that is an important relationship to build.
Well, first I would say that I think there are only two nations on this planet that can claim they have a biblical relationship with one another. One is Israel, one is Iran. And it goes back to the time of Cyrus the Great. Cyrus the Great, who liberated the Jewish slaves in Babylon and helped them rebuild their temple in Jerusalem. And when Iranians go and gather at Pasargad around Cyrus the Great's tomb years ago, of all walks of life, of different ethnicities, different religions, and celebrate Cyrus the Great because he represents every values that Iranians cherish and believe in, and say that we are not a nation at war with our neighbors. We can be trusted partners in the region, working with the Arab countries, working with Israel, as opposed to a regime that is acting the way it did. That's the difference right there. We need to be able to show the world that Iranians, unlike this regime, are committed to friendly relationship with our neighbors. We don't have any issue with the Arabs. We don't have any issue with the Israelis. And why is Israel important? Because I think it is a very important strategic partner to Iran when it comes to this. I'm thinking beyond just the politics of it. I'm talking about the water crisis in Iran, which is a major issue for us, well beyond politics. If there's no water, there's no life. And guess who have the best specialists and experts in the world dealing with water issues? Israeli experts. One of the reasons I went to Israel was to talk about that as well. And there are so many ways that we can engage and partner with them, helping us in that area, as opposed to a regime that says, no, they don't even have the right to exist. That's the difference. So it's not necessarily focusing only on one country. It's a regional thing, but most importantly, from the prism, whether it's Europe or the United States, why can't we, as people of that region, be the ones working together to bring about stability without having to depend on an armada of U.S. aircraft carriers to maintain stability and peace in the region? Why can't we work with each other? That's the difference, because Iranians are committed to that. And when you look at how it's perceived inside Iran, let's remember one thing. The regime has been the one financing its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas. When they got over $200 billion a few years ago, that was spent not on, Iranians that are starving on the streets, but to, in fact, empower these proxies that led perhaps to October 7th. And when people for years have been chanting in Iran, neither Gaza nor Lebanon, my life will be sacrificed for Iran, that means what? That means not Hamas, not Hezbollah, and in that sense, it's a very clear demarcation from this regime. This is not me saying it. This is people chanting it for years to come. Before the mass uprising, after the mass uprising. That's part of the national psyche. Today, in every demonstration we see in the diaspora, you see that it's the Iranian national flag. A lot of time we see the Israeli flag and the respective flag of the country where they live. Tomorrow in the rally, you'll probably see a lot of German flags, as we saw Australian flag in Australia, as we saw the Canadian flag in Toronto and Montreal, or the American flag in LA, showing that Iranians are respective universally of any peace-loving nations. They are respective of their host country. That's the difference between us and this regime that basically so antagonistic. I think that's basically the spirit of our movement that is demonstrated by the will and resolve of Iranians that say, we are not this regime, we are not warmongers, we want to be the peacemakers.